That made me happy just to like imagine that. See, okay, the problem here though is when it rains, the soil is clay. This is like where we are, like thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago used to be like a lake.
Well, you know what isn't gonna... Wow, my voice. You know what isn't going to cause a flash flood is the... Oh, geez, I didn't actually look at the document. Episode 42 of the Halcyon Frequency podcast, airing live November 6th, 2022. I'm Blind and I'm hosting, and I'm joined by Suwey. You've already heard her voice. How are you today?
I'm doing good.
And we're also joined by the man of the North, Belannaer.
Hey.
How are you?
It's been an interesting day today. It's gonna keep being interesting, I think, for a little while.
I think it's going to be an interesting weekend, but it's been an interesting week for a lot of people. I mean, like, Dwarf Fortress got a release date, so the entire world can now celebrate.
Mm-hmm. I'm really
World
looking
Peace
forward
can
to
come
that.
at last,
People are announcing
and hot potatoes happening.
Yeah, people are announcing their slots right now, so make sure you're watching your favorite streamer's Twitter, and because they might post a video soon announcing it, or they might have already.
That, or if you don't follow any streamers on Twitter, just look at the Halcyon Frequency Twitter account, because we're retweeting all the tweets.
Yeah.
So things are popping up, things are happening, and it's going to be fun. But Belannaer, you sound a lot more clear today because you got a care package in the mail. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Was sending some they call it starter package, I guess, through a Nordic PR management company, and they were nice enough to consider me as well. And then they decided to send me a package of a microphone, a mouse, keyboard, and this mouse pad that is more like a flying carpet. It's so huge, like literally bigger than my table, and also a headphone, which is really, really nice. And I kind of needed an upgrade of mouse and keyboard and everything anyway, so it was like it's perfect. And I've been testing it for like a few days now this week. I still need to build a little bit of the settings of the microphone, but it's great. It's also every single one of these things has a RGB programmable as well, which is not something I'm super into myself. But then chat was on my stream saying that we need a channel pointer redemption to change the microphone color.
I love it.
Resubs, change the microphone color. Bits, change the microphone color.
It's currently pink because people wanted it pink.
Excellent. Yeah, naturally.
My keyboard and mouse have RGB, but I literally turned it off because I just don't like RGB, and that was like going into my face, and I was just like, no, I don't want this extra lighting.
I don't mind it when you have like adjustable, like if you can turn it off, and then if you can make it really dim, but still have a little bit of light, it's quite okay. But like they have like those like a blinking or changing to different lights and so on. It's like, no.
The entirety of like my desk like setup is non-RGB. My mouse has a LED in it, but it's only blue, and it has two settings, which is on and off. So I have it set to off. But my computer, like everything inside of it has RGB because like I just bought a new graphics card and it's covered in LEDs. My motherboard is covered in LEDs. One of my 4 RAM sticks has LEDs on it, and like so my computer's just like this pulsating light show. Meanwhile, like my desk is just like pitch darkness at all times.
Yeah, I have also like a RAM that's RGB, but my box is like solid black, so you can't even see it unless you look like from the back, and there's like a little bit of a hole still. You see it like, oh yeah, there's RGB there. And I only bought it because it was cheaper and not because it had the RGB.
Yeah, there's a few fans in my computer that have RGB, and that's it. And I'm just there like, I hate these fans. Like, it's a couple of them on the front of my case, and then my CPU fan. And I'm just like,
you might be able to disable some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go into the BIOS.
So there was like a program I could use to do it, but the thing is like every time I turned my computer on, I had to redo it. And I was just, I'm not there for that. I'm too lazy for that. So it's Rainbow. And you know what? I don't care enough to mess with it, you know?
Yeah, it's really annoying.
I'll just deal with it. It's literally by my feet. Whatever.
I mean, as long as it's not like keeping you awake at night, like who cares?
True.
Like they're not really using any power.
Yeah, no, Subo used to bring his computer to the bedroom whenever we went to bed because he liked having a show on. Now he just uses his phone, but when we were first living here, he did that, right? And it took a long time for me to like get him to have to change his RGB settings every time because it just would keep me up, and I was just like, it's too bright, dude.
Yeah.
This blinking light.
When I got this new PC as well, there's a really bright like a blue light in the front that shows like the power is on. So wife was annoyed by that when I was sleeping. And the PC is like in another room, but you can see the blue light like this like a weird alien invasion in the other room. So wife took this like black tape and just taped the light away.
Blue light is the worst. Like, I feel like other colors aren't that bad, but when it's blue, it just like goes straight through your eyelids, I swear.
And so many devices have like that massive blue light.
I bought these LED light strips off of Amazon during the pandemic because I think everybody did, and I basically don't use lights in my apartment anymore. I just have these two light strips, and I just have them set to like this really dim beige color at all times, and it's just kind of lovely.
Yeah, that's
so, like
really nice.
I never use the lights in here.
It sounds cozy.
The one cool thing about this whole RGB thing was that because they're all from the same company, and they have their own like software, so you can sync up all of them, all the devices. So you have like this like a maximum wave of lights going through all your devices on the table.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's definitely like a sense of aesthetic and fashion to that. I don't know. I guess I come from an era of just like the only acceptable light sources to be cool at a computer are the monitors.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I guess I just watched Hackers too many times when I was younger. You know, it's just like I don't want any RGB anywhere, but I do want 47 monitors around me. Why? I don't know.
That would be nice.
I feel that.
I just need more monitors.
I feel that. I really want a third monitor. I have two, and I'm just constantly like a third one.
Yeah, I have two as well. I want more.
I have two 30 inches and one 27 inch, and the 27 inch looks so freaking small compared to the other two. And then I also have some stuff that I do on my phone sometimes, which affects the stream, and that's it. And then I have just like a keyboard and a touchpad and multiple cameras.
24 inches.
Your monitor's 24 inches? How do you use it?
So
That's miniature.
I know.
It's tiny.
So is my
It's
tape.
like pretty close to me though.
Oh well.
Yeah,
Small
plus
screen for a
we
small
don't
person.
have that much space.
Yeah,
we
that's
do
my
not
issue
have that
as
much
well.
space, right? We barely have enough space for our monitors. I think Suwa has like a 27 inch or a 30 inch. And his monitors barely fit. Mine fit very nicely. So
You need to get yourself a proper living space.
Yeah.
I know. I
Same.
just need to make more money first, and
I have a space. I don't make that much, but you can get by.
yeah, but we don't want to
But-
rent. We just want to like save so that we can like buy a
And then
house
buy a
straight
place.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like yeah,
That's the way to do
we
it.
we live in like a cramped space, but like we don't fight, and honestly, we're both comfortable. We don't care that much. Like sure, there's inconveniences, but any place you live is gonna have inconveniences. You can find something wrong no matter where you are. You know, you can live in like the nicest mansion ever, and you're still gonna have things you don't like about it. That's just
You
life.
would have space for 14 monitors, though.
True. But you'd have a
Like-
lot of space to clean. And let me tell you, having only, 24 feet of trailer to clean is so nice.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a pretty small apartment, and there are times where I'm just like, yeah, I'll vacuum next week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I sweep like once a month at most.
Oh, no. Like, if I were to do that, there would be a carpet of my own hair on the floor.
Yeah. And
I mean,
same here. It's like
we
a
don't,
Wild West.
we don't talk about
occasionally.
my hair being everywhere, okay?
Like, long hair life means, like, yeah, no, vacuuming has to happen every 3 days, or this carpet gains a carpet on top of the carpet.
Yeah, long hair is like having a cat.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
The hair will be everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just it's kind of funny because like people like every now and again like somebody in my extended family will be like, at least you don't have to clean up dog hair, and I'll be like, I mean, I'm almost as bad. And it's not even because like I'm losing hair either. Like this
Yeah,
is
it's
the normal
really
amount
weird,
of hair
like,
shed that people do.
I have like a full
You know,
lush
whenever
hair.
I brush my hair, my hairbrush is like has a solid layer, right? Because I brush my hair just before I shower, every other day, and I look at it and I'm just like, am I losing my hair? Is my hair thinning out? But no, you just lose a lot of hair as a human, and we just don't think or talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
Considering how much you lose, it's weird that it keeps so long still. It's like, how did it grow
Yeah,
this
I
fast?
don't know how it works. It's like, is it just like racing to catch up, or is that just like the normal way of things? I don't know how hair
hair
works.
hair's weird.
Yeah. But at least surprisingly, it still kept growing for like 20 years. So I guess it's not all going away.
Yeah. Well, I think that with the obligatory kind of body talk out of the way, I think it's time that we go to a real quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about video games. Because that's a thing people care about, I think. So we will be right back after this short message.
Hello everybody, I'm FG Squared over on twitch.tv. I play a wide variety of games Mondays through Fridays starting at 9 a.m. BST, which is 4 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central European Time. So come on over and check me out. See you soon!
And we're back with episode 42, The Meaning of the Universe Halcyon Frequency podcast for November 6th, 2022. I'm still blind, and I'm with Belannaer and Suwey, and we're here to talk about the games that we've been playing this week. So you know what, Suwey, it's been a minute. I want you to tell me about your obsession with Project Zomboid.
Dude, okay, so Halcyon used to do stuff with Project Zomboid ages ago, and I never joined because I didn't own the game, and I just didn't want to just fork up the money and buy it, right? Because
You missed out.
I'm cheap. I was a full-time student at the time. I didn't really have the money, right? And then someone in my chat decided to gift me the game. And I decided I'd try it out. And so it's been like over 100 hours of gameplay now.
So, how you liking it? How are you? Because like
Dude.
back when we did the Project Zomboid bits, it was very much just kind of it was we always did them with viewer servers, right? So for me, it was just like me and 5 viewers would just like get into a car and then just go raid corner stores until we all die and get bored and then to go do something else. But like, how's your time been with it?
I've been having a great time like learning all the mechanics to the game and learning how to get good at the combat because the combat is weird and understanding, the way that the AI works with the zombies is interesting. You make noise, they go to that noise, and if you can get away from that noise before like they see you, then they just go to that noise, which is really interesting because when I was first playing, I was just like, oh god, they're all gonna come to me, and learning how to kill a bunch of them has been really fun. It's just there's so much to the game and it's all really difficult. It's a hard game and it's just been a really good time, honestly. Though I will admit I do rage quit on occasion. Like my most recent stream, which by the time this podcast is up won't be my most recent stream, but the stream I did on, we'll just call it Thursday early morning, I did rage. I got overconfident and a zombie kind of got to me from my side and then I died. So it happens, and the thing that sucks about dying is like you spend so many hours building up your skills. So dying, it's a bit of a slap in the face, but I still keep coming back. Can't help myself. I'm just like, ooh, more.
Yeah, it's kind of harder with the dying the skill thing if you want to do like anything long term and any of the more difficult to make things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I just lost all of my hours and hours of progress to a small scratch.
Yeah, I did just find a mod to like help make that less horrible, especially as I'm a new player. Like as I become more confident in my abilities, I'm gonna like make that mod not as good. So basically you can write down all of your skills and then you can read it after you die and get those skills back. But you have the ability to choose what percentage you get back. So I started with 90% and I think I'm down to 75 right now. And I'm just going to keep lowering it because, eventually the goal is not to need it anymore. And not to use it anymore. But for the time being, I'm still using it because I still die like a single character typically lasts like, I don't know, 15 hours for me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but you don't even get any of your skills to max. I have not yet gone a single skill to max yet.
Yeah, but you don't want to. Like the
Why
thing
not?
about Project Zomboid, and this is like the thing that's always pushed me away, is the further into the game you get, the less interesting it gets. Like it gets to a point where like you can just walk it gets to a point where you can like by yourself take out a horde of zombies more or less with like proper precision and like strafing and just smart like unit placement of your own character's body. And it's just my main issue with Project Zomboid is it's like, well, the late game is just like, how do you avoid the zombies as much as possible? How do I build constructions that are impenetrable by zombies? How do I make an impenetrable base? And then it's just you go out there trivial, you shoot a whole bunch of zombies. It becomes a matter of keeping them away from your stuff and less of a matter of like actually surviving. Like for me, the most fun bits of Project Zomboid are right at the beginning of a world for like the first, like before water gets shut off, when you have no skills, your character's a smoker and you're just like tripping over yourself because you have absolutely no ability to survive properly. You're breaking windows and like throwing yourself over hedge mazes and such. And that is the portion of the game for me that's like really fun. But once you kind of get to that point where you have a couple points, and it's like combat, a couple points in building, like you've fortified a couple houses, it just kind of starts, the combat sort of starts to become trivial, and the like actual survival side of it just stops being as engaging, at least for me. And that's where you delve into mods and you like make the game more interesting in that way. But it's like for me, like having all of the skills wasn't the fun bit about Project Zomboid. The fun bit was getting to the point where I had the skills.
That's fair. For me, like, so now that I have so many hours in the game, I'm starting to get to the point where I can kind of do that level of combat very early on. You know, I can take out a whole horde pretty easily on my own, pretty quickly. But it's super satisfying. That's why I want to skill up. I want to skill up so I can one-shot zombies, so I can take out a huge horde really fast, so I can do it without my character getting exerted. You know, so I can, build some really cool thing with carpentry. So I can hotwire cars and have any car I want. Does that make sense? So it's more about, I still probably will die even with my skills all the way up. Because I'm going to be stupid, raid a place with a ton of zombies in it and die to a horde because I made a misstep. It does happen in the game, and that's kind of the fun of it, is trying to do these like ridiculously hard things all on your own without like any help. And if you get overconfident, I play with multi-hit on, which basically means you can hit multiple zombies at once. You can hit 3. What happened most recently is I already had 3 selected, and there was one on like my far right, and I didn't hit it, and it was too close, and it got me, and it grabbed me, and then there's an entire horde I'm fighting, so they all grab me, and there's no getting out once more than like 2 zombies grab you.
Yeah, it's one hell of a game, and I think it's kind of come along in a lot of really cool ways, and it makes me just kind of sit here and go, Suey, so have you ever heard of a game called Cataclysm: Dark Days Ahead?
I'm not.
What if Project Zomboid?
Oh, that's
every
CDDA.
Single mechanic. Yeah,
That's
what if Project
CDDA.
Zomboid, but every single mechanic was 10 times as deep and it was turn-based?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I'm not a huge turn-based person, so.
But then you could take your time and chit-chat with chat and like just kind of
Okay,
hang out between scary
okay.
events.
My problem with turn-based games is I don't have the patience to wait for the turn, so I just go through it really fast, and
So
then I
hit the
die,
button
and I'm just
faster.
like, yeah, but then I die because I made stupid decisions.
Then hit the button at medium speed.
Yeah, but then I get impatient.
It's literally based on the same rule set, but anyway, I digress. I was mostly just doing that as a jokey aside.
Yeah, no,
But
like
it is the
apparently
ultimate endgame.
Yeah, I've heard CDDA is actually what inspired Zomboid, is what my chat was telling me.
So they both come from the same tabletop rule set, Cataclysm.
Okay.
It's sort of like D&D and Pathfinder are both based on similar rule sets, right?
Ah, okay, yeah.
Or sort of like how like actually it would a better example would be like the Pathfinder RPG and then Baldur's Gate are both based on similar base rule sets at a point, right?
Using 5e, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's kind of the I guess connective tissue there. But I don't know. I don't really expect you to ever get into CDDA, but it is it is that, but minus the multiplayer. But that's honestly actually the reason I do prefer and like Project Zomboid is the multiplayer, because for me the best part of Project Zomboid is everybody sucks, nobody has good skills, but everybody's good at one skill, so you're forced to work together. I really enjoy that aspect of multiplayer Project Zomboid, where it's just like, yeah, you're the car guy. You can do some wood building stuff. You can get food. You can cook. Okay, we'll leave you at the house. You come with me because I need you to hijack a car. Like that's the thing I really enjoy about Project Zomboid, is working together with some friends, doing a little zombie survival scenario.
Yeah. It also has like, okay, the workshop for Project Zomboid is pretty dang big. Like, it's not quite Rimworld big from what I can find, but there's so much stuff you can do with mods, just saying.
Yeah, it's a very moddable toy.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of moddable toys and Rimworld big, Rimworld did drop a new DLC recently, and Belannaer's been playing some of it. We heard some of it from Drongo last week, but I'm curious, Bell, what's your experience with returning to the Rimworld been like?
It's been great. I haven't played in ages. Like I probably played last time when the previous DLC dropped a little bit, and then I didn't really play that much as either. So it's basically been kind of 2 DLCs for me, I guess, in that sense. Well, I think the newest DLC is probably the best out of the ones they've put out so far. I mean, I guess that's what you would like also, that every DLC is better as they learn to make the game better, I guess. But I think it's really, really great. Like, it's adds so much more fun things with the xenotypes and all kinds of weird things you can have running around the place. Like, first thing I made when I saw the xenotype thing, and you can make like custom ones for your world. So I made a Finnish metalhead xenotype. So that's just a long-haired, blonde, pale guys who hate the sun, who are artistically great, running around in my forest in Rimworld. And I kind of wanted to do like a whole like selection of different all kinds of weirdos, and just to replace all the default ones. Just have a like super weird planet. And I like immediately had like 15 different run ideas. Like, I want to do a toxic run where everyone is immune to toxic and live in this like massive wasteland and go raiding from there and all kinds of things. But I think it's like the best so far what they've done, for sure.
I've heard only glowing reviews of it, so yeah, I'm excited to check it out later, but I've been so obsessed with Zomboid, I'm honestly probably not going to be checking it out until after the hot potato.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, you got to be focusing on vanilla stuff anyway, right? And it's not like it's going anywhere.
No. And it's only going to be better the more you wait. Like, I do like how
mods will be
works
compatible
really well with the ideology stuff as well, like the previous DLC. Even though they don't like directly have mechanics that work together, but like just making like a nice ideology that works then well with your xenotypes and so on. Just combines quite well. Like, it actually makes fun like stories, like Dwarf Fortress as well. It's like a story generator. So I think this is a good setup for interesting stories for your runs and how to do things.
Yeah. Over the years, I've always been very critical about like Rimworld and its storytelling capabilities, because like as games that pitch themselves as story generators, like that's a really, really, really high bar, and it's really, really difficult to actually like achieve that. I think there's several games that have. I know Kenshi is one that I see people citing as a player narrative story generator. But it seems like this is like the first real step in that direction outside of just kind of the manufactured stories that the game has always had, which I think is really cool. And as somebody who respects the game from a distance but doesn't play it, like it's nice to see it like moving in that direction. I think it's a shame that kind of capability is locked behind $30.
Yeah, it's always like that with the DLC, that you kind of have to have them as like a separate package, and it really cannot interact with the other packages then. It gets really bad with like Sims, for example, and any of the Paradox games and so on. When you start to have like a
Train simulator.
when you have like 15 plus DLCs and everything has to be like this self-contained thing, and they can never really build up on each other. And it would be much better if some of those mechanics were actually in the base game, so you could actually build up even better mechanics on top of that. But it cannot happen because you can't have a DLC for DLC and DLC for DLC.
I mean, I don't think Rimworld's quite at like the Paradox point yet, where it's too expensive to buy the whole thing outright. Like, it is getting expensive, but like it's still like feasible, especially like I mean, I'm sure there's certain places in the world where it's like, yeah, no, after transfer fees, this game is like month's rent. But like it does feel like as they've been adding, at least up until this point, it's still feasible for most people to buy the whole game. But once there's 2 or 3 more DLCs out for it, it's gonna be in the Paradox problem situation where it's like, why am I spending $300 on a video game? What?
Yeah, but the issue is as well as like the people do need to be paid for their work, and they wouldn't be able to add this content without monetizing it. So it's kind of this like tricky thing to balance, because you got to make sure that people are getting paid for their work, and it is a studio, so you got to make sure every person is getting their wages. And if you don't,
I will just
cost money.
Like pipe this up as an example. Kit Fox Games' Boyfriend Dungeon had a planned paid DLC that was supposed to come out after launch, and it was supposed to be a $15 DLC, which almost matched the price of the game. And their Kickstarter was successful. The game launched. It came out. It oversold what they were expecting, like 2 times what they were expecting, which is like roughly like over 100,000 sales, but not like crazy successful or anything. And because of that success, they actually gave their DLC away for free. And they're not a small studio. There's like 8 of them. They're not a tiny studio, but they're not the biggest studio. And they're based out of Montreal, Canada, which is not a cheap city to develop games in. So on one hand, Suwey, I completely agree with you. But on the other hand, Rimworld sold millions of copies, and the DLCs sold millions of copies. So yes and no. It depends on how much your salary is to a point, and I don't want to like directly just like be mean to Rimworld on like with this argument. But in the case of runaway successes like Rimworld, yes, that's true. But remember, Terraria is still $10 and hasn't charged for a DLC yet. And to me, this is more in the Terraria situation, where that game is constantly in the top 15, 20 highest selling games on Steam. They're not suffering for cash.
No, that makes sense. That makes total sense.
It also depends how you deal with your older DLCs and base game and so on. Like a lot of them put them on massive sales, and I think in some of the cases, like Paradox games, for example, when they start to have like how many is on U4 now, and I would think some of those oldest DLCs, when they go to like 90% sale already, like every other week, why not just roll them into the base game? Because that lowers the barrier of entry for the new players, and then you just don't need to buy all of those DLCs to get in the game. And then you can still keep charging for the newest DLC as you go, and just keep like rolling the oldest. When you put a new DLC out, put the oldest into the base game or something like that.
Yeah, like an example actually is Elite Dangerous, which that's a game that has a lot of very legitimate criticisms thrown at it all the time, and like that game's got a lot of problems, but it is also a really cool thing for what it is. When they put out Elite Dangerous Odyssey, the most recent DLC, which adds feet and lets you walk around, which is a $45 DLC, mind you, which as of time of recording still has mostly negative reviews. But when they released that DLC, they actually wrapped the previous expansions into the base game. So instead of the base game plus expansions costing, it was like $100 not on sale, the base game's just $40, and then they added another $40 DLC on top. So like, not that they not that they should necessarily do that. I think the game is still at a point where it's fair, but the DLC is kind of piecemeal enough where that's not an issue. But I could see that becoming an issue in the future.
A game that I've seen you play, or I've heard that you've been playing, and I've gotten press emails about, and I haven't really looked into too much. Blind is The First Men.
The First Men. So The First Men is a boy. Where do I start? The First
No.
Men is a game that I think a lot of people are going to play for a short period of time and not actually figure out why it's cool. But at the same time, and so they'll not be happy with it. But at the same time, it's a really cool game that's also very, 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 very early access. And I think that that's kind of hurting it to the point where, like, I actually kind of wish that they waited longer, even though this is a game that's been in development for a really long time. It's currently sitting at mostly positive reviews, and it was mixed, and I understand why. So The First Men is a 4X RTS RPG colony building strategy game, god game.
That's a
So-
lot.
Yeah. It's an auto-playing town builder where your characters have total autonomy, even more autonomy than something like Dwarf Fortress where you're setting roles and jobs. They go about their day and they just do things in front of you, and almost like a, I think Kiri compared it to Cookie Clicker the last time this game came up on this podcast, which isn't incorrect, but as they see things in their environment, they gain points in one of several different skill trees, which is basically just like their mind palace, right? And as they gain these points, you can spend those points on different perks, and the perks are different colors. And as they grow points in these different colored perks based on which section of the skill tree they're earning XP on, they will prioritize more of that thing. So essentially, it's like, imagine you're playing Rimworld with like your job priorities, except the job priorities are their skills based on the items they've been walking past a lot. So you're essentially automating a town based on what they like to do, which is really interesting and a really weird town building puzzle. And then as they unlock these skills, they will get certain one-off passions, which can be used to construct buildings. So you get to place where the buildings are, and then if they have enough passion for that thing, they will continue to do that thing. You can queue up items at certain buildings and whatnot, and then they will take those items and go out into the wilderness and do other stuff. So then
it's
there's
a big
another layer
brain
to it.
game.
Then there's very big brain game. There's another layer to it where you can select the people and then almost play Don't Starve. So you can select the people and recruit them into a squad, then you gain full control of them, and they walk around in almost like a little CRPG fashion where they walk around in squads and they will like auto attack when they get near to enemies and whatnot. They have their own combat stats too, and combat passions are a thing for certain types of weapons. And then you can go out and do little dungeon crawling things where they will eventually get thirsty and hungry, and you have to feed them, and they have to rest, and you can camp while your town is still automated on the other side of the map. And you'll go on these little dungeon raids where you go through these dungeons and you fight various gnolls and other critters, or alternatively, do quests for one group. So you'll go to a group and they'll be like, oh no, the gnolls stole my baby. And then you take your group of 4 people and you run over to where the gnolls are. And so you slaughter all the gnolls without asking them any questions. And then you like free the baby from a cage and you bring it back to the mom. And like there's multiple factions and they interact differently. And certain passions that your characters can get can generate gifts, and you can gift the gifts to the factions, and that ups their rep with you, and then you can make friends with them, and then the factions attack each other, and there's weird, like, world boss dragon things that fly over. It's a lot, man.
Yeah. I feel
And-
very little brain right now, not gonna lie.
I guess the question is it fun? And I don't know, but it's very interesting.
Fair.
So that's TFM, The First Men. Any questions?
Uh,
I saw Gringer played a little bit, and it looked quite interesting, but also something about it was like, I'm not sure.
Like
very
so- like,
overwhelmed.
a lot of
I
it
gotta
is like
say.
really, really artistically interesting, right? Like it's got the kind of like that almost Adult Swim, like aggressively ugly, but also super hyper detailed and very colorful aesthetic. And then some menus will just be like, oh, this is like almost a default looking menu with like no stylization on it whatsoever. What? So like there's parts of it that just feel very unfinished, if that's what you mean.
It feels like it's kind of that case of a bit too early access that some games do. Needs a little more time.
But it's been in development for 5
Yeah,
years, and
yeah,
obviously
but
it's all under the
still.
hood stuff. But
There is also like same
such
thing
a
on
pet
some of the
peeve.
demos as well. It's like you should, if you're doing a demo or early access, it should be like as solid and as good a representation of your core gameplay as possible, and just cut everything extra. Because if you leave a bad impression on demo or early access, people are like, it's not that great, and then they're not gonna come back. But if you have even like just 5 minutes of gameplay that's super solid, they're gonna be like, this is awesome, I'll be back.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the latter right now. It's like, this is really cool, but, you know, let's talk about the content that's in the game right now. There's a tutorial map and then just random scenario. And then there's a set of campaign missions, because there's supposedly supposed to be like a story-based campaign in this thing, and one of them is available. And it's like, okay, so there's not really a ton there currently. So I don't know. I mean, for me, I hope it sells well enough that they keep developing it, because I'd like to see more of it. Also, on the topic of like pricing and whatnot, it's $32.51 in Canada, which is maybe the weirdest price I've seen for a game in a minute. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's a really neat thing. I worry that it's weird enough that I don't know if it'll catch on, I guess.
I don't know. It's like my biggest pet peeve though when people like put games out in early access when it's way too early, because you kind of just ruin all the hype for your game.
Yeah, if you had
And-
any to begin with.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of games do better when they just go out in full release. You know, like didn't Potionomics do full release right away?
Yeah, that was just a 1.0 release.
Yeah, and like it's done really well. You know, like I don't know. It just bothers me because it's like there's so much potential here, but it flops because you know, they just did it too early, and like I get that you need funds, but you should not do that at the cost of like ruining a bunch of people's impression of a really cool game.
Totally. Yeah. But yeah, that's TFM the First Men. I have about 3 hours in it. I think I'll probably return to it at some point, but I'm very much in the camp of like this needs another couple months. Kind of like Clan Folk when that released, which again, it needs a couple, but I'd probably give it another 6 months and try it again.
I feel like Clan Folk was at an okay point for early access.
It was at an okay
release,
point,
though.
but it was a little fiddly in a lot of ways. It just kind of felt bad to me. So
Yeah, and it did feel pretty low in content. I'm not gonna lie.
like interesting systems, and I want to see more of it. But I mean, it's sold well enough, and they're developing it. So I mean, like I'm trying to think of other examples of this, but I'm drawing a blank. Oh, King Under the Mountain is another one where it's like, yeah, this needs another year.
I have a really bad tendency of just trying that kind of games for once for like an hour or a stream, and then it's like forget, and it's like, oh, it's full release now, like a couple of years later.
Yeah, and yeah, I kind of feel that. I think I'm generally a little bit better about that, just because I'm not. I return to games on a regular basis. Like I keep a rotation. And like all of those games are in my rotation. They're just kind of like in the sun's orbit, except I'm Pluto currently with a lot of them.
I play a lot bigger selection, so it's easier to forget like one of these 15 I played this week.
Yeah, no, totally.
See, for me, I go hard on one game and then I never touch it again. So when I decide to go hard on it, it just isn't complete. It just kind of ruins it for me.
Hear that, internet? When Suwey goes hard on it, she's gonna not touch it again later.
You're the worst
Anyway,
one. You are the worst.
This is what I'm here for. This is why they pay me the big bucks. Belannaer, do you want to talk to us about Rogue Genesia?
Yeah, sure.
Genesia?
So it's not the Rogue, but it's a Rogue Genesia, and it's another one of the Vampire Survivor style games. It looks pretty. They're kind of using the same kind of funky art style with like pixel graphic, but then having like a very detailed shadows and effects on top of that. Kind of what the Octopath Traveler did with Square Enix, although not as polished. I mean, this is a small indie company, not a massive global whatever. But yeah, it looks pretty. It's kind of jarring a little bit first though, until you kind of get used to it. And it has basically two modes. It has the standard survival mode, which is kind of the secondary mode for this. So like a Vampire Survivors, you survive as long as you can. And I think it's actually 30 minutes, like in Vampire Survivors. But they actually have it's called Rogues mode, I think it's called. Kind of like Rogues survival. And they take the mechanic from like Slay the Spire or similar games where you have like a branching map that you can choose which way to go, like which encounter you want to take or a treasure or whatever. And then each level is like a short Vampire Survivors kind of deal. You need to kill X amount of monsters or kill an elite mob or survive a certain time. And it's just generally really well done, kind of another game in that genre. Really interesting weapons, and some of the mechanics are really interesting as well, how they're done. And they also let you get, like, Vampire Survivor gives you 6 weapons and 6 accessories in most cases. This one, you just have like a 20, 30 different ones in your backpack.
Oh, wow. So they just kind of keep stacking.
And there's a lot of, they also do a lot of, like, in like Vampire Survivors, everything is basically just a buff. You get just more damage or more whatever. Most of the things, like, very few things actually give you negative things. But this has like a, something might give you like a lot more damage, but reduce your attack speed massively. So you're gonna have to pick and choose that way as well. You can't just slam this and do that, and everything is just better all the time. But you can get some pretty ridiculous things happening with that. I had one build where I just went maximum survival, because the first things I picked up was thorns as a weapon. So when enemies touch me, they take damage. So then I was like, well, let's just build like survivability as much as possible, and then I was like unkillable for 30 minutes. I just stood there and everything died touching me. But it's very similar in a lot of ways. Has the same like weapon evolutions and so on and so on.
One of the similarities that this game has to like the subgenre is it's very cheap.
Yeah.
So is this just like, if you like these things,
Yeah,
buy it?
absolutely.
Kind of
situation? Like I was streaming it. I got
Okay.
it gifted to me by a viewer who really liked it, and then I tried it a little bit on. I did a secret Discord stream, played like an hour of it, and then I was like, I'm gonna play this next day on my stream as well. And a lot of people picked it up immediately because it's like what €250 or something
Yeah.
like that. Very very cheap.
like $3.39
and it's
CAD.
totally like same as like Vampire Survivors. It's so worth the money if you like that kind of thing. So.
The thing that like I love watching trends in games, right? Like I'm just fascinated with this industry, and it's really neat. Kind of like I'm not a big fan of Vampire Survivors publicly, so specifically for various reasons. But like I didn't actually find that game to be particularly fun mechanically. I found that one to be particularly frustrating. I like the versions of these games that are a little bit more tactile, that have a little bit more player agency in what's actually happening aside from just positioning. And for me, there's two things that I think are really, really interesting about these games. One, they're extremely accessible to disabled people. So people that have like any kind of limited movement or what's the word? Like any kind of physical disabilities that prevent you from using complex controls. Like these games are very accessible to generally, with the exception of things like 20 Minutes Till Dawn, where they require you to aim.
Yeah,
obviously.
this one actually has an option to aim as well, but you can turn it into auto aim as well if you need to.
But the other like kind of trend that I think is really neat about these games is that, you know, they're all really cheap, right? And there's a lot of them now. And what's kind of happening is like it'll get to a certain point, and then everybody will go buy another one, and then everybody will go buy a different one. Like there's like, I don't know, like 500,000 people that will just play the crap out of one of these games for a week and then just get bored of it and then go buy another one. And I think like all of these devs that are just putting their game out are just kind of sitting there gambling, going, are we gonna be the hot shit next week? And it's been kind of fun to watch. I don't know, because like I'm gonna talk about one of these games in a moment, which is Boneraiser Minions. And for that dev, it's like it was a side project that he was like, oh, I could make one of those, and made one of those in like a week, and then just like put it up for like $3, and then like 100,000 people bought it. And he's like, well, I guess I'll develop this for 6 months, and then I'll go back to my main project.
Yeah. I mean, they do seem fairly easy to develop.
It's kind of funny.
Like I think I could make one in a weekend as well if I really wanted to. But you just have to have like a good base same concept, and then throw a little twist in there of your own. And
yeah,
I'll happily buy every single one of those as well and try them. Like I also tried Potato, which is basically kind of same genre as well, and it has its own twist as well.
Yeah,
same viewer gifted that as well. And I'll happily play that as well.
Potato, right?
They're all just really great. Like they're super chill small games.
I've been playing one specifically while things have been rendering and uploading, which is Boneraiser Minions, which is by a developer who I've been following who's made several like run-based platformers over the years and is working on a traditional roguelike, which I've been paying attention to, called Dead Zoned, which is like this very psychedelic looking like traditional roguelike. But he took a break and started developing a game called Boneraiser Minions. It's a vampire survivors concept, but there's kind of a fun quirk to it where you're a necromancer in a graveyard and the map isn't infinite. You're on a graveyard and you have a dodge button, but almost no methods of attacking, at least initially. Eventually, like you start to get perks where like you can like throw out knives similar to vampire survivors, but all of your abilities come from summoned zombies and hordes of zombies. So you're just like running around just like spamming summon zombie or like trying to kite the bad guys into your zombies so that they get eaten by your zombies and then you have to like kite back around to get through their stuff again. And all your upgrades go to like make your dash better and like make your like one use spells better and stuff, and then pretty quickly you just have like 8 different zombies that are like throwing poop at people and you're just like dodging underneath them. It's also got like a very like goofy sense of humor because like the zombies are bones, and so you're casting boners to summon the boners, and that like these bone pokers show up and they just have spears and they're stabbing stuff. But like it's also like weirdly deep because then you get outside of and you get into the meta progression stuff and it's like, oh, okay, so you can upgrade your necromancer. Okay, you can upgrade your zombies. Okay, but you can also upgrade the enemies so that they give you more money faster. And then there's also like a card game element where you every couple of runs, or if you get far enough and get enough points, you get a card, and then that goes into a burn card deck, and then you play a mini game against the AI. And if you win, you can get a one-time bonus for the next run, like double money or like extra experience or like various other perks for the next run. Or like you start with a bunch of zombies. And like so there's like a weird like meta layer to it that just, I don't know, it's fun. I've just been playing it muted and minimized most of the time, but it's like... It's a weird subgenre that Vampire Survivors has caused to happen. Like we've got like a resurgence in Flash games.
Yeah,
almost.
it's really cool. And Boneraiser sounds very
People
interesting.
suddenly are okay
I
with
might
paying
have to
for them
pick it
again.
as well. There's overwhelmingly positive reviews as well, surprisingly.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like it's goofy and fun. I mean, like it's a little slightly more expensive over these things.
Yeah,
but like
I'm selling like €4.
Also
so
buying
it's
it
not that expensive either.
Yeah. It's like a whole euro more, but like it's also supporting Anthony Case, who's working on some pretty cool games as well, which never really did super well. I mean, like if you just look at like the review counts versus Boneraiser, it's like, yeah, okay, like certainly you've definitely done better with this than some of your other projects, which is I think a bit of a shame because the other projects are way more interesting, but also
It's also good if it's funds like the other projects. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
You might as well dip there for a bit to fund all your other fancy things.
So, since we've been rambling about surviving vampires, Suwey, do you want to talk to us about making soup?
Soup? Excuse
Soup.
me?
Yeah.
No, I am not making soup except for IRL. It's potions.
Okay.
I see you're on the
tell us
soup
about
train.
these soupy potions.
No, they're standard potions, and potions are not
Standard
soup.
Potionomics?
Yeah.
Singing cats.
Sorry. My chat has a bit of a meme going on where everyone's insisting that potions are soup, which makes no sense at all. Because potions are not a soup. Anyway, Potionomics. I checked it out like yesterday for the first time, and I know I'm really late to the hype train on it, right? But I am having a great time with it, honestly. It's so cute. All the characters are like super expressive, and then like the gameplay is really fun because it is a card game, but I don't know, they do a good job of not making it just a card game because you also have to like brew your potions and make sure that you're selling the right things, but then you also need to use the potions for stuff sometimes, so you can't always sell them. And yeah, it's a good time.
Well, you did say you kind of missed the hype train, so it's been talked about a good number of times on the stream, but or not on the stream, on the pod over the past few weeks. So I guess the question is like, do you recommend it? You enjoying it?
Yeah, I do recommend it. And like apparently you can romance a bunch of characters, but I haven't really found a character that I necessarily want to romance. But like, I don't know. There's
There we go.
like the second character you meet is called Mint, and I'm kind of thinking about romancing her because she's super cute and like really enthusiastic.
Is she Mint?
Huh?
Have you never heard that term before?
Is she the carpenter
like
deer
mint condition?
person?
But like, I don't know. Maybe like I've heard that there's like 8 people you can romance, and I've only met a couple of them. So I want to know what the other ones are too.
Sifting out through the options. I mean, Belannaer.
I played the demo, yeah, and I think I met a few more people than you have so far.
Okay, yeah, I got like 4 hours in. I went through the first competition and then I ended.
Yeah,
So
Sounds like a video game.
yeah.
I was watching FG play quite a lot
I
of
don't
it,
know.
and it looks really, really amazing. I played the demo, and I really want to play it as well myself, but just haven't had time yet.
No, it's been a good time so far. I'll just say that much.
Well, since that's been a good time, I'm going to talk about something that's definitely not a good time. So Halloween happened, which is a great time, but I wanted to play some horror games. So I played a horror game off stream. And the game that I picked up and played through is Endoparasitic. Endoparasitic is a game made by a YouTuber, actually, who the YouTube comments when I uploaded a video of this informed me of very quickly. And also there is a prequel to this, which is a first-person shooter, which doesn't have very good reviews, but called Rot Flesh, which I've actually heard of before, which is a game where you shoot organs off of things and then rip organs out of dead enemies and equip their organs to upgrade your flesh. It's a thing. Anyway, this game, Endoparasitic, is a top-down survival horror game where you play as a character who, at the very beginning of the game, gets both legs and one arm ripped off. You cauterize the wounds, and that's the rest of the game. You're a dude with one hand, and you crawl around on the ground. Which I would recommend looking this game up on Steam and just looking at the visuals of it, because it'll give you a good idea while I talk about it. The thing about Endoparasitic is it's entirely mouse controlled, right? So left click basically lets you click and drag yourself around. Right click lets you open your inventory, and mouse wheel lets you scroll around in your inventory and things. But you can only do one thing at a time because you only have one hand. So say you want to shoot your pistol, right? You have to reach down onto your character's belt and grab the pistol. Then you can't move. You can only shoot. Then you can shoot a couple bullets. Say you don't have any bullets. You have to right-click to pop up the pistol and then pull each bullet out manually one at a time while not being able to move, and then reload the pistol from your secondary inventory, which is in another screen. Then you have to put the inventory down and shoot things. The whole kind of shtick of the game is it's like this weird sci-fi world where you're in a base that was experimenting on alien life. That is on the moon, I think, and pretty far away from the main base, and you're infected with it. It's in your back, and it's crawling up your back, and if it gets to your brain, it wins. So as you're crawling through the world, you'll find syringes, and in your inventory, there is a screen where you can see this bug, and like it's slowly moving up towards your brain, and every now and again, you'll have to give yourself injections with this syringe to like block it from getting to your brain and killing you. Or fully taking over and mutating you into whatever the other things are in the base. And it's pretty simple puzzle work, you know, like it's go over here, flip this switch so you can grab an item, crawl over to the other side of the thing, put the item into the thing, flip another switch, and then go out the door. It's that kind of stuff. It's pretty simple, like puzzles, and then just like unlocking safes and arranging wires and stuff. But it's just in this almost getting over it with Bennett Foddy mold of just like crap, I need to like pull my body around the edge of this table. I need to pull out a gun and shoot this zombie and then like throw a thing so that I can stab myself in the back with this injection and then run over here and slam this door shut so 4 more weird zombie monster with crab arms for some reason come through here. There's a variety of different guns that all reload differently and go in different places of on your body. Lots of items, and it's very gross. The sound effects are very splatty, and I had fun with it. It's also pretty cheap. It's like $10 here. So it's an affordable little game, and if you for some reason want a gruesome as heck but also approachable and kind of funny horror game, like it's not super scary. It's just very grim.
Those give me nightmares. I hate bugs
entertaining.
so much.
You hate what?
Bugs.
Oh, like the thing in your back? Yeah, fair. I mean,
yeah,
it's not...
well, like, all of
the
the
least
enemies
gross bit
look
of it,
kind
I'd
of
say.
buggy.
Oh, true, yeah.
It's, no.
They have kind of an
I'm
insect vibe to them.
Good. Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I had a good time with it. Yeah. If you're looking for a horror game. Speaking of terrifying video games, Belannaer, do you want to talk to us about Gotham Knights?
It's kind of interesting case because the reviews for Gotham Knights were pretty terrible when the first ones came out. Like I think it was IGN or PC Gamer or something gave them like 4 out of 10 and 5 out of 10.
Ouch.
And similar ones. And the Metacritic reviews are pretty terrible for it as well. And they were bashing pretty much everything about the game, from graphics to performance to combat mechanics and progression and everything. And then Warner Bros. Games sent me a copy of the game. I was like, well, I'm happy to receive the game, but how is it gonna be if it's that terrible? And I was like, well, I'll just find out myself. And to be honest, I would say all of those reviews are wrong. It's actually a pretty good game. I played the previous, like the Arkham horror games, and not Arkham horror. That's the Arkham Knight, and yeah, that's a very different thing. But I played the previous Batman games basically, and those were highly liked. And I don't know why the new one is not highly liked, because it's basically the same. Combat is exactly the same. Instead of a block, you have a dodge, and then it's same punch, dodge, punch, dodge. Same against one guy, and the other guy's wait next to you, more or less. And it's still a Batman. If you like Batman stuff, it's still great. Although Batman is dead in this one, so maybe that's the negative thing.
Yeah, screw Batman.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Batman myself or any of the superhero stuff usually. And the fact that Batman is dead in this one is actually the one that makes me much more interesting for me. And you play as basically the companion. So you have Batgirl, you have a Robin, you have a Nightwing, and Red Hood. So basically Batgirl, Robin, and Robin. Because all of those 3 have been Robins at some point. And you can play with all of them. Basically, you can switch at any point. And they each have like the main story is same, but you can switch which one you use. And the dialogue and things differ a little bit, which character is like interacting with the like Harley Quinns and Mr. Freeze and so on. And then each of the characters also have like small side story bits for each of them. And those are written and voice acted and acted like really, really well. Like I would say that's like 9 out of 10 or even like more than that. And it's kind of shame that the gameplay is maybe like 6 out of 10. It's not that great, but it never was in like it's basically like what you expect like Assassin's Creed or any of the other Batman games or similar ones where you just sneak around, punch, and do that over and over and over. It is quite grindy and all of that. So it's not that great, but it's not also so bad it's unplayable. Like it's not 4 out of 10. And I'm really into the story. Like I've been really loving to listen to the story. Like Harley Quinn's character, for example, is really well written and acted. I've been really enjoying that. And there was like parts like where they were like combat is too easy and it's not very interesting or anything. And I wonder if they actually played the game long enough. Like it starts pretty slow and very easy. But once you get to like each Harley Quinn has like a whole story arc of missions you do, and then like a Mr. Freeze has a story arc you do, and Clayman and so on. And the end of those, you have basically an end boss, so basically the character that you're fighting, and those fights are not easy. Like the difficulty spikes massively on those, and they're like really long fights, like easy, like can be like 10 minutes of fighting, and they're actually really fun as well. Like it's not just a stupid difficult; it's like fun difficult. And I don't know where all of this negativity came for it. I mean, it does perform quite bad, which they patched and made it a little better, but still should be running better, to be honest. And things like that.
I think for me, this is maybe a bit of a combination of fandom and also just like death by a thousand cuts. Like everything I've kind of heard about this game is like, it seems to be like, oh, it's another one of those to a fault. Like, also, they like even just little things like, you know, I was watching you and you were noting the driving being like painfully slow, right?
Yeah, that is pretty terrible.
And even if like it's not actually that slow, if it feels slow and that something doesn't feel good, then it sticks, right? And if something is a large portion of the game and it sucks, then that's gonna hurt it, right? And I was listening to a different podcast where they were talking about this game, because I haven't played it personally, and they were saying that things like you'll be like jumping from building to building using like your hook shot, and then like randomly it won't hook shock to the building in front of you, and it'll actually like catch a building behind you and launch you backwards. And honestly, I think that this is just a combination of, yeah, they made the same game with different playable characters, and that's fine, but having same problems from previous game plus some new problems and poor performance just kind of equals, why did you make this and not the game that we wanted more, which would probably be more Batman. And I've also heard some weird things about the multiplayer not working, and considering it's kind of sold as a multiplayer game to a degree, or a co-op game, that's going to hurt it. So I think this is honestly just a death by a thousand cuts situation. Like if you're sitting down and this is your first ever Batman game and you have people to play it with, you're probably going to have a great time.
I would imagine so. I didn't try the multiplayer or anything, but you can play on a co-op, which is kind of interesting. There is like even abilities that are like a help if you have someone with you. And people were saying that they were probably going to make this into a totally different kind of game originally, like more like a live service type of game, because of how the loot system works and upgrading and things like that. They really remind of a system like that would be in that kind of game. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Would love to know what they were actually originally going for and where did it change and why. And there's definitely other things, like the whole motorcycle is really weird because it feels bad, but you also replace that in like a couple hours, and you can also just jump from building to building, and then you get like gliding, and you get like this fast travel thing where you have this weird bat glider that flies you through the city, and then you just use the gliding ability, so you never really use the motorcycle after like first hour of the game.
But, you know, like we're talking about poor reception, right? And what's Steam's refund window? 2 hours, right? So like if you only use something for like the first hour, maybe hour and a half of the game, then, well, that's your Steam review window to refund the game. And of course that's not going to count for like critical reviews, but certainly like if the first hour sucks, then that's going to show. And like, again, it's as I said, it's a death by a thousand cuts. You've played all of the Batman games, and you're like, oh my god, a new Batman game with new characters, and then the combat's exactly the same as previous Batman games, except you don't get to play as Batman. Like that's just not going to sit well with people. It
also like the combat gets better once you get further into the game and you get a little more difficult and interesting enemies, and then you also get abilities yourself. So it's not just a punch, dodge. You get a few other things in there in the middle as well. But it's also interesting. I've been just because it's reviewed so badly at launch. I've been kind of keeping an eye on it, and I've noticed that the Steam reviews have been slowly getting better and better. Like they started pretty low as well, and then when people played it a little longer, they started going up and up to like it's 72% now, which I think is pretty fine number for it. Like 7 out of 10 is what I probably score the game as well. Like it's, if you get it cheap, it's fun if you want some Batman punch for some hours, but I probably wouldn't buy it for full price myself.
I have a question. Did you ever play Avalanche Studios Mad Max?
No, I didn't. I kind of wanted.
So Mad Max, it's I would say play it. It's a lot of fun. But when that game first released, it was kind of critically panned, especially by critics. Like not so much by Steam. Like I remember the reviews being like mostly positive initially, And then pretty quickly it skyrocketed up to very positive. And then when they dropped the price down to $30, it actually went to overwhelmingly positive for a little bit. It is, when it came out, I remember it getting criticized for poor performance because it didn't run super well. And it was criticized for it being essentially just an Assassin's Creed game. Like the melee combat is basically just one button combos, maybe two buttons if you're lucky once you get the more advanced weapons, but it's generally just one button combos. And the car combat is kind of simple. Like it's very much just you go up alongside and your car auto targets to a thing, and then you shoot out cables and stuff explodes, and then eventually you have a guy who can throw spears off the back of your car. It's pretty simple car combat, but it's fun, right? And it's very pretty looking, and it's got a lot of cool particle effects and stuff explodes in very satisfying ways. And I remember that game coming out and getting critically panned. Like it was like a 60% on Metacritic at one point, and it's like their criticisms was it's an Assassin's Creed game, which is very true. It is an Assassin's Creed game. It is an Ubisoft open world game, even though it's not made by Ubisoft. It's published by Warner Brothers, and it's made by Avalanche Studios. But it is that exact same structure. You go to a big site, you go to the top of it, you expose a bunch of the map, you go to all the different points of interest in that area, you collect all the collectibles, then you move to the next zone. And that's how the game works. And it was criticized for uninteresting combat in that. But it's a very, very solid one of those. And that almost kind of strikes me as what this kind of situation is, where like, yeah, at full price initially at launch, and it's kind of like a crappier version of things that already exist, which is totally fair in a lot of ways. But if it stands on its own and it's unique enough, maybe the co-op makes it unique, maybe the characters that you can play as makes it unique. Once this thing gets a couple sales, I think it'll get a community behind it and people will play it. Like it's just that kind of game, and I think Warner Brothers realizes.
It's interesting. Mad Max is now what, €20, which is much more a palatable price.
Yeah, it's also a game from 2015.
Yeah, it's also like a reviews
it's been around.
Recent reviews 93% positive, and all reviews 91%. So it's reviewing really well now as well.
It was a full price release game at launch, and I think it was like within 3 reviews they dropped it down to $50, and then by 2020 it's been 30 in Canada, and it's basically stayed there since.
I think also a lot of the negativity comes from the usual DRM people downvoting, and it's probably also reason for some of the performance issues.
Well, I mean, Mad Max still has de novo anti-tamper on it.
They actually patched with the first big patch they did for the Gotham Knights. They did a lot of like performance upgrades and so on, and they accidentally patched out the de novo DRM, and then like quickly repatched it in.
That's really funny.
Which obviously made people pretty salty, because like, yes, no more DRM. And it's like, well, no, it's back.
That's very amusing. But you know what you don't need to patch de novo out of is this podcast. So I think I'm going to take us to a real quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the news that's been happening this week. So hold on to your butts, and we'll be right back right after this.
Hi there, podcast listeners. Jess here. If you missed me on today's episode, never fear. Stop by on Twitch instead. You can find me at twitch.tv/wo_Jess, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Please enjoy the rest of this episode, and thank you for listening.
And we're back with the Halcyon Frequency podcast. We're in the last segment. We're talking about news. The news that's been happening in the world in the past few weeks and this week. And Belannaer, you're going to take this first one. So talk to us about Steam regional pricing.
So, this was that popped in my feeds. And I didn't see it really being talked about in a lot of places that much. So Steam posted this on October 25th. And it's about the new regional pricing that they recommend. So whenever you're publishing or selling a game on Steam, you can set the values, like how much you charge wherever yourself. But Steam also has this a recommended, because it's not like all of us know what's the exchange rate for something like a Peruvian sol to dollar. So it's much easier to have this if your game costs $60, it's about this much recommended for this country or this currency. And some of these currencies have been very old and not really updated. So this is the new one they're doing. And a lot of games are getting a lot more expensive if they're using the recommended prices coming forward. For example, Europe is supposed to get about 20-25% increase in game prices compared to the old and new recommended. like all the $59.99 USD recommended was $49.99, and the new is $58.99. So basically same as the USD. Although not all of these are these are recommended, so they don't fully represent the reality that's been already happening. Like a lot of the like $60 games have been 60 euros in Europe already. So they're basically more expensive than the recommended price already. So technically we should be paying €1 less now if it goes with the recommended. But some other countries are like massively increasing their prices. Like Turkey and Argentina are 450% or 480% increase. They've been like extremely cheap. But I also saw part of that is also because people were using like VPNs and ways to go around and buying games from those regions. There's a lot of, especially like indie developers, wondering like, why do I suddenly have like a million subs, like people buying games from Argentina? And it's like a massively cheaper buying there.
One that I've been seeing a lot is this is concerning people in Brazil because the Brazil is getting a 52% increase. And that's a sizable portion of my audience. And especially with the release of Dwarf Fortress coming out, there's some people that I've been saying it's like, yeah, this will be like the cost of Dwarf Fortress will be like half
a lot
my
of these
month's
are
salary.
very steep increases, especially on like the countries that have a much lower income. Like we can definitely, like Europeans can afford, even though that price increase is gonna hurt in Europe, we can afford it mostly. Except maybe like Eastern Europeans who might have some struggling with prices.
Canada's getting an 8% increase, which again, like I can afford that, but ouch, that's gonna suck.
It's definitely gonna be, especially in like this time of the what's happening around the world. Like everyone has less income and less spare money to put into games, and suddenly games are also more expensive. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that affects basically everything.
Yeah, I'll say this: like I don't have like much to really input on this, but I guess it's just kind of a awareness thing and making sure that other people can discuss it. Like if you're in a region that's heavily affected by this, it's I would say take a look. And
there's also like interesting ones like Norwegians are getting 63% increase, but that's for a $60 game basically, and they previously only paid 400 whatever kroner, which is basically 40 euros. So they've gotten games really cheap, even though they're a quite high income country. Like again, and now they're basically that increase is basically bringing it to 60 USDs. They pay also the same 60 instead of 40. So there's some countries or some regions where it's also been kind of wonky for the cheaper way, even though it really probably shouldn't be. Like they've gotten a lot cheaper games. Like comparing like Norway and Finland is pretty same like income wise, but we pay 20 euros more for the games for some reason, and now that's basically bringing it kind of on the same level. So there's that kind of things in this as well that kind of brings them on the same level. But then some of the, especially the poorer countries, are gonna hurt very, very much with this.
Speaking of money not being sufficient, Suwey, do you want to read this next headline for me?
Yeah, so according to Square Enix, the Japanese market is no longer sufficient enough to recoup the investment, and they're now focusing on the global market.
So I'm just going to, like, the main reason we're covering this particular article, like, this isn't a super dense article. This is a write-up on My Nintendo News. I'm just going to read this quote from Square Enix's president because I think this leads into the next story we're going to talk about quite well, which is achieving major growth in the game industry is difficult now for companies that compete primarily in the Japanese market. Giving its graying demographics, as such as it is, critical for our business that we produce hit titles that speak to a global market, which offers greater scale in terms of both customers and sales volumes. In order In other words, the Japanese market is no longer sufficient for achieving a level of earnings that enables us to recoup our development investment costs and generate a profit. And we therefore need to approach our development efforts based on the assumption that we have to succeed in the global market, which I guess is good for people who like Square Enix titles to a degree.
And some of them have been really successful, like outside of Japan. Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
14, for example.
Oh yeah. I mean, I personally am a bit of a Square Enix fan
I've
for the
always been
most
as well.
part. I mean, of course, Yeah, it's like there's some titles that don't interest me, but there's some really good titles coming out of their company.
I think it's a strange move because Square Enix is a company that's baffled and perplexed me. You know, like they sold off a bunch of stuff to Embracer recently, including a lot of very legendary and popular titles in the West. And now they're turning around and just also saying, by the way, we need to focus on the West. It's like, hold on a second, like, well, why couldn't you have just made like a remaster of the original Deus Ex then? Like, come on.
Didn't they sell off like Tomb Raider as well? And
They sold Tomb Raider, Deus Ex,
a long list of
it was like basically every single old PC IP from like Looking Glass Studios and stuff. Like they sold off Thief. Like they basically the only Western studio they have any hand in is they're still publishing Avalanche titles.
And if I remember correct, they also
Yeah,
sold those
supposedly.
for like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it was 350 million that they sold 3 studios and like a bucket load of IP for, and they sold
And
it
you
all
would
to
think
Embracer.
those IPs would be a lot more worth it.
dude,
Which led to a lot of very funny like comments on Twitter from like people like New Blood saying they sold the Deus Ex for how much?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have, like a lot of companies would have, like, this cheap, I'll buy it.
No kidding. It's like I saw so many tweets that were like, why didn't you guys tell me that Deus Ex was on sale? I would have crowdfunded that. What the hell? But like, no. So it's a strange take because the next article that we have here that comes right after this one is also a Square Enix title. So Square Enix's Symbiogenesis isn't the Parasite Eve revival anyone was hoping for. This headline taken from Michael Whitwar, I think is how you say their name, on Polygon here. And I'm just going to read this first chunk of this article for you because it'll give you a pretty good idea. Fans of Square Enix's Parasite Eve felt a twinge of hope last month when the publisher registered a trademark for the term symbiogenesis, with multiple reports noted meaning the merging of two organisms to form a single new organism. Those reports also attempted to connect that definition to the Parasite Eve games and their inspiration, fueling speculation that Square Enix was returning to the action RPG series after more than a decade. But on Thursday, Square Enix fully extinguished all of those hopes by announcing it as a Web3 at a Web3 conclave in India that Symbiogenesis is actually the game publisher's first collectible art project designed from the ground up for Web3 fans, described cynically as a brand new entertainment content. Symbiogenesis promises collectible digital art paired with interactive story and a dedicated community, in air quotes. It is unclear how Square Enix could guarantee the latter, but it seems unimportant to the intended audience.
Yeah, this is definitely not something that's going to capture the global audience that they need to fund their things.
Yeah, right?
I mean, if the new organism is NFTs, just kill it with fire. It's not worth surviving.
Yeah, I'm just... This is so, like, out of touch to a point where it's actually kind of funny. I mean, obviously there is an audience for this, like the Web3 crazies, like, exist. And though there are people within those circles that certainly want to continue purchasing those things and shoving
there
money
seems to be a
into
lot of
them.
money
But,
going
like,
around,
I
for
don't...
sure.
Yeah, there's still money in that market. And, like, there's money to be made if you hit that market. But, like, there was a good article bouncing around a couple weeks ago that was basically stating, like, hey, be happy, gamers. We won. Basically, we've shut the number of NFT games that have largely shut down or alternatively launched non-NFT versions to keep their companies afloat is kind of astounding. So I'm kind of the mind right now that like any game that just pops up that like, by the way, we're Web3, or any project by game publisher, unless it's just an art project, which somehow those still do well, any game related thing at the very least seems to just be like, yeah, screw it, we don't want it. And I think that we might be winning on that front. Of course, there are a few that are successful. They're printing buttloads of money somehow. But like largely, I do think that like the opportunity has kind of come and gone for NFTs in games largely at this point because of protests from people just refusing to interact.
Yeah, it seems also like it's like a totally like kind of like VR is also like it's like a totally separate thing. Like normal gamers don't really do VR, and normal gamers are not gonna do NFTs.
Yeah,
so it's kind of weird trying to take over that part and not just a focused kind of as its own thing. Like that is definitely gonna be
the thing though. Is all you need to do. Sorry, go on. All you need to do is rebrand them, don't call them NFTs, and just be quiet about it and kind of coy, and then suddenly, like, Reddit, boom, 90% of people on Reddit have NFTs. That's not totally true. But, like, the large portion of people on Reddit suddenly now have NFT profile pictures. They were just quiet about it. I didn't call them NFTs. So, like, if EA Games just, like, crammed NFTs into FIFA, I don't think people would blink too much.
Yeah, I mean, they could have marketed this as, like, a collectible art game something without all the NFT vocabulary there, and the people are like, oh, that might be interesting. But when you throw out all of that other stuff in there, it's like instant like a no reaction to that whole thing.
Yeah. The branding of NFT and Web3 is so far down the dumpster at this point. You say that and people just shut brain off and walk away going,
every time like an email or like a sponsorship thing or something like that says those words, I'm like instantly like delete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like everything being monetized, and this just makes everything monetized, and that just bothers me. Like, it's just it doesn't matter to me. It almost doesn't matter if they're NFTs or not, because like honestly, the it's burning the planet down thing is kind of overblown to a degree. Bitcoin is most NFTs aren't, especially like the Reddit ones that I was just mentioning. It's like they're on Polygon, which is not the website the blockchain, but they're on Polygon, which is literally like it's non-consequential. It's all proof of stake. It's like it's no worse than credit card transactions. Like it's very much a clean, like modern tech. But like for me, it's the principle. It's the same reason I don't take part in the Steam marketplace on the back end of Steam, because I don't care. and that's just exactly the same about how I feel about like these collectible art pieces. It's like, even if you put it on a clean blockchain, even if you make it affordable and available, even if they're available in copious amounts, even if people have them and they actually have use in things, I don't care.
I mean, that's my biggest problem with the whole thing is that it doesn't really bring anything extra to this. Like I've not seen anything like, wow, this technology is giving us the ability to do this thing. Because like the whole card collectible thing, it's just a database that has existed since computers have been thing. Like it's no different than any normal way of storing things. It's like the technology doesn't bring anything extra value to the product.
The only thing that NFTs do is it gives the original creator of the thing a cut of the sales whenever player transactions happen. And that's not a positive thing for the player.
But this is already a closed environment of one publisher's. Like it's not like you're getting a small artist adding NFTs into this game or anything. It's all controlled by Square. So why does it have to have that kind of thing? Because it's already controlling it anyways.
They just want their own Bored Ape Yacht Club. They want the Parasite Eve thirst cult. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Suwey, do you want to read this next headline?
Yes. So, embrace... Oh, sorry. Oh.
That was me copying it.
Okay, I just got really confused. I'm sorry.
Don't mind.
Yeah. Embracer has shut down Onoma, which was formerly Square Enix Montreal.
So the plot thickens because we have the Square Enix selling off a bunch of studios. Then one of those studios that Square Enix sold to Embracer then turns around and shuts down. So Montreal-based studio, formerly known as Square Enix Montreal, now known as Onoma, which they announced their new name 3 weeks ago, which is why I'd never seen the name of it before. They canceled the game, and it's shut down. And some of the staff is moving to Eidos Montreal. And Eidos is working on a Fable game for Xbox. So I just want to say, like, we've been talking a lot about Embracer acquisitions, and, everybody's been tentatively positive kind of nonstop about Embracer acquisitions. Because largely things seem to be kind of status quo. This is an example of a studio that was purchased not a very long period of time ago. That's now just gone dead splat.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because the Square Enix Montreal is the one behind like Deus Ex stuff and some of the Tomb Raider stuff and quite a big name games.
It's quite a major studio that has put out quite a bit, regardless of how it's been received.
They have recently only done like a kind of mobile Hitman Go, Lara Croft Go, Deus Ex Go.
I like those games, though. I played all
Until
of
the Space
those.
Invaders game, I guess that's cancelled.
Yep.
Also, Avatar Generation. Is that the Avatar the movie? That's
the most recent Avatar game, yeah. That's
this-
coming out soon.
to be announced.
Supposedly.
But,
Blue People Avatar or Airbender one?
Blue People Avatar, yes.
Mm.
Culturally relevant Avatar, not nerd stuff Avatar.
I mean, it's very relevant since the new movie is coming out soon.
Yeah,
I kind of
unfortunately.
want to go see it and see how it is.
I'd rather see
Oh,
Mario.
yes. That's next year.
That's April.
That I will definitely. I'm gonna book like a holiday and go watch it.
I'm just going to eat edibles and then sit in the audience and go, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. And I can't wait. Suey, talk to me about the hot potato.
Yeah, the hot potato is gonna happen in November. I don't have the dates up like I should. Hold on, it will take me 2 seconds. There we go. It is November 23rd to 28th. And people are starting to announce that they're in it. So, yeah, it's super exciting. We got a lot of cool things lined up. I'm really, really excited for this year.
For the uninitiated, give me like a 1-sentence pitch on what the hot
Yes,
potato is.
sorry. Thank you. The hot potato, this is the Rimworld hot potato, or as we are now calling it, the Halcyon frequency Rimworld hot potato. It is basically where we have a large group of streamers. This year is 35 of us, and it is being passed between each player. We call it a marathon relay event, which basically means you start off on 2D Kiri's stream. She has announced her turn, and you will end on my stream. So you just tune into Kiri on Wednesday, November 23rd at 10 a.m. And next thing you know, 10 a.m. on Monday, November 28th, if you've kept that tab open the whole time, you will find yourself at my stream, where I will be ending the event. And, there's a teeny tiny chance of a really cool interview, just saying, during my turn. It's not 100% yet. We don't have it 100% confirmed, but there is a chance of a really cool interview, just saying. So it'll be worth it to check it out, I think. And we're raising money for Doctors Without Borders, which is a humanitarian charity, and they help out with medical stuff throughout the entire world. Whenever there's a need, they're there. They're there for a lot of disaster relief. They're there for, when COVID was really being intense, they were there helping out in different places for that. They're just helping out people for so many things. And, you get to help out by donating, and all of us get to help out by, Halcyon is, putting the event together. And then there's 35 of us raising money, so let's hope to make this a good year.
And it's also worth noting that in a couple weeks, the week of the event, I think on the 20th specifically, there will be an episode going out in this podcast feed where me and Suey got to speak with your contact at MSF
Yes.
about MSF and about video games a little bit and raising money for charities. So hopefully you'll all enjoy that when that pops up in the feed here in this podcast feed. But this has been a podcast, I think, a podcast of all time. And I think now's kind of the opportunity for us to kind of wind down a little bit. So Belannaer, who are you and where can people find you on the
I am
internet?
the Finnish potato of the team. And you can find me, I guess, up here in the north. But you can also find me on twitch.tv/Belannaer. I guess since the schedule is changing again, because things are happening, I'm going to be there every day. European evening time still. I drop usually more or less. And you can also find me on YouTube. What's the new handles? It's Belannaer TV, I guess, on YouTube.
Just
at Belannaer TV.
At
Those are
Belannaer
so
TV,
weird still.
yeah.
And I need to also do one for
Yeah.
the miniature thing. But you can also go to my Twitter and find all of my links there. So that's easier. Go there, Twitch or Twitter, and find
That.
links there. Or ask me.
Suwey, who are you and where can people find you on the internet?
Hi, I'm Suwey. I recently graduated university. I'm currently
Congrats.
job searching. I want to be a game producer. I play a lot of Project Zomboid at the moment, but I'm usually a variety streamer. People can find me. I'm Suwey on Twitch. I have at Suwey on YouTube, and then I have at Suwey streams both on YouTube and Twitch. That's my YouTube stream archive. And also, I just want to say, on November 12th, I'm going to be doing my 4 years of streaming anniversary, which I'm super excited for, which will also be pairing with a Stream Reader Skinathon. It's going to be my first one because I just got my second skin out and it's super cute and I'm really excited. And that's going to be starting at 5 p.m. Pacific and it's going to run until I end my stream. So, yeah.
I just gotta say, I don't ever want to hear the term skinathon again.
But it sounds like a Halloween event.
Oh.
It sounds
And-
like something that would happen in the
Yeah.
movie Halloween.
In the 4-year stream anniversary,
The Marathon of Flesh. Sorry.
no, you're good. I'm probably going to be opening up a Project Zomboid community server for my community since the streamer server being open to the community has kind of died down at this point.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that it's worth noting that if you like this podcast, you can find more episodes of it at halcyonfrequency.com. If you like my voice, you can find me at BlindIRL on almost all platforms where I play Too Much Dwarf Fortress. And if you want to get more episodes of this podcast, you can find it almost anywhere organic podcasts are harvested. And if you wish to have this podcast appear in a place where you like to listen to podcasts, at me on Twitter or on Discord or send me a DM and I will make it appear there. If you want to help this podcast out directly, leave us a review on iTunes because it is very difficult to get reviews on iTunes, and that's the main way that podcasts get promoted. And if you want to talk to us about this podcast, you can join the Halcyon Frequency Discord server where we got rooms to discuss the pod. And lastly, I just want to say a real quick thank you to Peter Pohl and Paul Mile for the fantastic tunes you hear in and out. I won't be here next week because I'll be in Las Vegas, and this has been an excellent episode of this podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Till next week, we'll be live on Sundays. Don't change that dial. This is Halcyon Frequency signing off.